I want to get an anime before I turn 30, so I'm starting a manga and webtoon studio. Today I'm going to be telling you guys about my journey as a author, how I went from just a young kid to eventually a finance bro to eventually now creating manga and webtoons full-time in the shonen space, now trying to get this anime before I turn 30. But before we get into the video, please drop a subscribe and drop a like. It really helps with the algorithm, and let's get right into the video. So as you know, I'm trying to get an anime before I turn 30.
Believe it!
Anime and manga is actually what got me into storytelling as a whole. Before I even did the manga and webtoon stuff, I was a novelist. And I'm so lucky to be in a position where I am able to make a living making shonen series in the United States, which is ultimately not a very conventional place to be making shonen type projects. But you might be wondering how I got into manga and webtoons to begin with, and it all started with the first time I saw a pair of boobs. That is correct. My mom got me a manga called Dragon Ball. You guys might know of it. The first chapter has Bulma, and she shows her breasts and her butt in the first chapter. And I was like 7, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell? This is so cool. Yeah, I basically went on to read a lot of Dragon Ball and kept borrowing manga from the library. Basically, I started reading that series and then moved on to stuff like Shaman King, Zatch Bell, One Piece, reading Inuyasha, reading a lot of shonen type of stories. I was even so into it that I was even drawing my own manga on pieces of paper, and I would print it out using my scanner at home, staple the bits together and sell them for quarters on the playground in my primarily white school where no one gave a crap about what we were doing. I wasn't making a ton of money, guys, don't worry. And then I discovered Toonami. It went from comic books to eventually animation, where I was watching Naruto, Dragon Ball, Bleach, all on the big screen. I guess like when I was a kid, I didn't get bullied that much liking anime because Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh were super big at our schools. But when I got older, I was getting bullied in high school for being the biggest nerd in the school. I mean, I was totally cool with being the biggest nerd in the school, but like anime was definitely not cool when I was growing up. It wasn't really a potential career path, making manga and that kind of stuff. One day I decided to flip a coin because I was also an anime artist. I used to draw anime, and I used to also write fan fictions throughout this whole period of time, from elementary school through middle school. And eventually when I got to high school, I decided, hey, I'm only going to become good at either writing or drawing. So which one am I going to be good at? Eventually I flipped a coin to decide whether or not I would become a writer or an artist, because I didn't think it was going to be possible for me to be good at both, just because I wasn't putting enough time into both things. Heads was writing, tails was art. I landed on heads, and I became a writer for the rest of my life. I actually quit art. I had an Instagram that was art Instagram, and I just stopped drawing from that day onward. Just kind of sad, but at the same time, I was so driven to make something a cool story. After that day, I took off to start writing my first novel. I was 14 years old when I started my first novel, which was Age of Darkness, complete ripoff of Naruto. I'm sure I have another video out there talking about how it's such a ripoff and how I eventually managed to turn it into its own thing, but it was very inspired heavily by Naruto. Got like 100,000 readers on Wattpad, and then I eventually took it to publish when I was 17 years old, about to go to college. From there, I kept publishing novels that were primarily anime inspired, because I thought that it was impossible to make a living doing comics and manga in the United States. So you could primarily make a lot of money off of novels, though, because I was seeing another guy named Turtle Me. You might know him. He does the beginning after the end. There was another guy making money doing kind of anime style stories also on Amazon. So we were publishing actually at the same time. I kept writing novels. My second novel was the sequel, which was Age of Darkness 2, which came out when I was 18. Then when I was 19, God of War Ares came out, which is another series, but that was my first bestseller. And then I wrote another one, Ghost Wolf. And then, eventually the novel streak stopped because I got an opportunity to write for Western comics, American comics. And that was the first time I really realized that I could take my writing skills and work with an artist to bring a story potentially to life. I was doing American comics at the time, but my goal was obviously manga, because I was super inspired by Japanese manga, anime, that kind of stuff. And that was why I was writing my stories, was to basically create my own version of that. And so eventually I shifted over from the American comic space into manga. And so I actually worked with my first partner. His name's Umair Ali. We did a manga called Somnia, and we were publishing with a bunch of kind of indie publishers. I had some terrible experiences with a lot of indie manga publishers and indie comic publishers. I won't say any names, but I'll say that a lot of these publishers felt like they were primarily middlemen for the publishing stuff, which was like, they can get you print printed, they can run a Kickstarter for you, they can market you. At this point in time, I knew how to print stuff and I knew how to market myself probably better than a lot of the publishers did, because I had maybe 40,000 followers at this time. But I had several other like Instagram pages that were anime related that were like 500,000 plus. So I was like, wow, I have a lot of eyes. And so I was like, I don't really like the deal I'm getting for making the entire project and then they take 50% of it. It just didn't really make sense to me. Instead of going with a lot of indie publishers, I pulled out of those deals and decided to self-publish things on my own. And I got some traction from that on TikTok. I noticed that when I was publishing Somnia, I was getting a decent amount of traction, but it was really this manga competition that really jump-started my career. It was a competition called Shonen Jump Tezuka 100, which happened in 2020. It was their 100th Shonen Jump Tezuka competition, which is how you break into Shonen Jump, the publisher of Naruto, Bleach, One Piece. And the competition for the first time was open to the international world. I decided to enter with a series called Icarus Rising. The submission went viral. I got like several million readers on it. We were actually the most read projects on Shonen Jump Tezuka 100 when the submissions closed, which was pretty insane. And there were a lot of people watching this competition because there were big judges on it. There was Takehiko Inoue, who does Real, Slam Dunk, Vagabond. There was also Kohei Horikoshi, who does My Hero Academia, Akira Toriyama, who does Dragon Ball, Kazue Kato, who does Blue Exorcist. These were just people who were going to read the manga. And obviously I knew that they weren't going to be reading every single manga in the competition, but I did know that if we got to a far enough round that I might be able to have some of my legends read my manga, which is pretty crazy. And we did. We at least got through the second round review because they asked me for my address and for all this personal information. They emailed me personally. So that was pretty cool to know that my work was being read by some of my idols. Unfortunately, we didn't win that competition, Shonen Jump Tezuka, but we went on to win the Kyoto International Manga Competition, which was pretty exciting. But the Shonen competition wasn't a waste of time because ultimately, from all the attention that I got doing Shonen Jump Tezuka, there was actually a couple publishers that noticed me because the videos I was making, I was pushing it out, super viral videos on TikTok at the time. Publisher noticed me and offered me an opportunity for serialization. That was my first opportunity to actually serialize. By now, guys, hopefully you've noticed that I've been working like 5 to 7 years before I got my first serialization opportunity. So it was a super long time. The serialization was called God Game, my first serialization, and it did pretty well. It's getting a spin-off series, got several million views. It's got a lot of transmedia opportunities that are coming out, which is super cool. God Game was my first publishing opportunity. And then from there, guys, getting your first serialization is super hard, but getting your second is a lot less hard. Because then got an opportunity with Webtoon to do Just a Goblin, which is my next serialization, which I think is even bigger than God Game, probably because Webtoon is a bigger platform. I got the opportunity to do Just a Goblin, and then Samurai no Tora, and now Bandit King, Mad Gay with Voice Me, Samurai no Tora, Double Kill, Angel Wings with Webtoon, a couple others that are happening. And now I'm starting my own studio because I'm doing too many projects at this point. I'm not saying all that last part to brag. The thing is not to brag. The thing is to say it took me so many years before I was able to get the first serialization, which was God Game. Before that, I was doing everything for free. I wasn't making money off of the projects I was doing, really. I was just working out of pure passion. And at the same time, I was going to school, working in finance, living normal life. A lot of my free time is when I was doing all this, writing my novels, making manga, entering competitions, trying to get people to notice my talent. And then once I hit the serialization, I had an opportunity and I did not squander it. I made sure to go all out in the God Game writing and make it super engaging and super interesting. And so people really enjoyed it. And then I got my next opportunity and then my next opportunity. And it became to snowball. The hardest part, guys, that a lot of our mangaka need to realize is getting the first opportunity is the hardest thing. From there, things just go out of control and they just start to snowball. If you make sure to grasp the opportunity that life will give you. A lot of it is luck, but obviously at some point it's like if you try hard enough and you put yourself out there enough, luck is going to eventually come to you if you work hard enough. That was my journey on how I eventually shifted to the full-time manga and webtoon career and how I got all these serializations down. Now I run the studio and putting out a lot of projects. The next goal of mine is obviously the anime adaptation, which means that I have to create a series that is so large and so amazing and so interesting and has enough content. That's like also a key thing. It can be very popular, but if it doesn't have enough content, then a producer might not want to adapt it. That's the next hurdle that I'm going to be tackling over the next couple of years, and I will be documenting it on this channel. So hopefully you guys stay tuned. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my little life story. That was my origin story. It's probably somewhere out there on the internet, but I wanted to put it here on my YouTube channel firsthand. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, make sure to comment any sort of other questions or any questions about my life or questions that you want answered about the manga or webtoon industry. Feel free to do that and subscribe. A lot of you guys are watching my videos, but you haven't subscribed. I'm seeing you. Also, check out all my serializations. All of them are linked in the description if you want to see how my work actually is. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on next week's episode. Peace.